What up, family? It's your favorite cousin, your favorite uncle, your favorite nephew, your favorite father, your favorite son, your best friend's best friend. It's me, Dr. Larry, and welcome to Living For You, the YouTube channel. This is a safe space, a positive place in which we come together and we gather together and we learn from one another, we grow, and we collectively learn to be more present in this thing we call life, because technically we are on the same journey. How are you doing today, family? I love you guys. To my loyal, faithful family who have been rocking with me from day one, I love you. You're family. You're my heart. Thank you for being here again. Thank you for coming with me and indulging me today, as you've always done. And to those of you who watch from afar, you might as well go ahead and become family and subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing. It's free. It's good information. It's a positive, upbeat atmosphere. Hopefully you're enjoying me. I know I'm going to keep it positive. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel. For those of you who are just now getting to know me because this is your first time seeing my face, first of all, I am Dr. Larry Smith. I am a certified life and spiritual coach / historian / entrepreneur / everything else. But my business is called Live For You Coaching, where I help clients to overcome a trauma that's been weighing on them for years, probably a childhood trauma, a relationship trauma, an actual physical trauma, whatever the case may be. I help them overcome that trauma so that they can live a more present life. If you want to know more about me, you can actually go to www.liveforyoucoaching.com. That is www.liveforyoucoaching.com. You can find out about me and find out about a lot of things about my business, as well as what products and things that I have that you can probably purchase, including some free ones that you don't have to purchase. If you want to follow me on social media, because on social media is where it's at, because I tend to post things about the society that's going on in the world, that's going on in politics, popular culture, funny things, important things, quotes, spirituality. There's a lot of things going on my social media. You can follow me there on both Instagram and on Facebook at Dr. Larry Smith. That is Instagram and Facebook at Dr. Larry Smith. So go ahead and do that. And while you're here watching this video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down, whatever you're trying to accomplish here in this video. It's completely up to you. You have a choice. But go ahead, for me, hit the thumbs up button. So anyway, family, I'm coming on here today to talk, but I'm sure you guys noticed, yes, I have new glasses, and that's a good thing, because clarity is always good, whether it's visual clarity and being able to see clear visually, physically, or whether it's important to see clearly mentally. So visuality, or visibility, should I say, it's very, very, very important. Anyway, moving on from that to why I'm here and talking with you. I wanted to get on and talk about something that I saw online, kind of this conversation that was happening on social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, different places. And even Cardi B and some other celebrities actually jumped in on this conversation. I saw this picture, and it is the picture of a young male playing at a kitchenette set, you know? And the conversation came up where there were some men saying, I would never get my son a kitchenette set, and some women was like, that's not good, that means he's going to be gay, or whatever the case may be. They had all kinds of conversations, and then there was back and forth to those who said it's all right, from those who said it wasn't all right. And so I decided I wanted to get on today and talk about masculinity and this faux perception that we have had for centuries, for a long time, about masculinity. Masculinity is not something you put on. It's not something that you just project. It is something that is in you, and it is actually something that is in both male-born children and female-born children. We all have a little combination of both masculinity and femininity within us, on a spiritual level, on a physical level, on an emotional level. It's just the completeness of it. It's the masculine energy and the feminine energy putting together to create who we are. But aside from that, in society we create these faux perceptions of what masculinity is and what even femininity is. And what I have noticed in just talking to people, observing people, listening to people, looking at social media, watching television, watching movies in society, there is actually a premium that is placed on masculinity. So for the worst thing for a male to be is to be effeminate, according to some people. And for them, that is seen as a defect or a problem. Now, many people see it that way, but they don't realize what they're doing is they're demonizing or damnizing femininity. when femininity is just as important to the order and balance of the universe as masculinity. In some regards, femininity is probably more important. For example, when you're talking about a child, one of the most important things to do is to nurture that child. Women are natural nurturers. They have that tendency to do it. Even if they're not motherly, they always have a tendency to somehow nurture. Whether it's to nurture themselves, nurture their relationships, nurture their children, nurture society. That's just a natural inclination for feminine energy. And so the reality of it is that's a very important and powerful energy and aspect of feminine energy. But we seem to somehow always make it seem as though feminized energy is less than masculized or masculine energy in society. However, I consider that faux masculinity, that you gotta act tough, you gotta wear a construction hat, and you gotta be a cowboy, and you have to show up in society as the toughest and the rugged and gangster and strong and muscular and all of these other things that we consider masculine male energies. So many people feel a certain kind of way if they see a boy at a kitchen set or a kitchenette, that's going to turn and damper on his masculine energy. First and foremost, there's plenty of men, super masculine, hyper masculine, non-masculine at all, who cook. Everybody got to eat. In order to live, you gotta eat. And so if you're a man who is single or in college or on your own for whatever reason, how are you going to eat if you don't know how to cook? Sure, you can go out to the restaurants and get your food every night and do all those things all the time, but at the end of the day, it saves a lot of money and it's a better quality of food when you can cook it in your own kitchen from your own hands. And you might not necessarily find somebody to come in to be able to do that, or even have the money to be able to do that, even if it's just boiling ramen noodles on the stove. So even as a man, you have to know how to cook. Some of the best chefs in the world are men. Some of the best cooks in the world, I can imagine, I can just think about in my family. It wasn't just women who cooked in my family. Sure, the women cooked in my family. Cook wonderful food. I learned a lot of ways to prepare food and to cook things in my Creole culture and cuisine from the women in my family. But I learned just as much from the men in my family. It was a badge of honor for the men in my family to be able to throw down in the kitchen. In fact, when my parents would cook gumbo, you'd have my mama's gumbo and my daddy gumbo, and they would seem to always compete over who made the best gumbo that year. And it wasn't no one thought about masculinity or femininity or none of that when we was enjoying that good food. And so it is preposterous, and I don't use that word that often, but it is preposterous to think that it is somehow dampening the masculinity of a kid, of a young man, by giving him a kitchenette set. In many ways, you're giving him a venture, you're giving him a lane that he can possibly go off through and be very successful. A lot of times, and I can just speak for my community, the many ways that we see boys as coming out of the quote-unquote ghetto or moving up in life is usually through basketball or football or going to the military or doing these types of things. But when it comes to brain work, which is my specialty, I got out of my neighborhood and I got out of where I grew up in using my brain, being a professor, being a teacher, being a thinker, a thought life person, a thought person. But most people don't see that as a viable way. But you can also become a chef. So if you get an affinity for cooking as a young lad when you're a young kid, of course you can go on and be something else and be a chef and prepare culinary arts all over the world. It is not connected to your gender expression. It's not. And it's a preposterous, that word once again, discussion to even, and futile to say the least, to have a discussion in that regards to a young man who is just simply enjoying working and cooking and having dealings with the kitchenette. We have got to get out of this closed-minded 19th century, 1950s, old archaic way of thinking that this is what a man is supposed to be and this is what a woman is supposed to be. I'm not saying you have to just say, okay, I'm open to everything, but you also have to understand that there are things in society that have existed long before any of us are here. We're here and will exist long after most of us are gone, and will exist even longer than that are just present in society. You have to be open-minded and willing to accept the diverse nature of humanity. Humans are extremely diverse. Humans are extremely varied. There's a variety of difference. Each and every person has a variety of differences within themselves. So to try to restrict somebody to a social construct of what masculinity is and what femininity is does that child a disservice. I don't want to get into the conversation about toxic masculinity because people seem to have issues with that, but we're not going to call the masculinity toxic. It's just the people's social expectations or their cultural expectations of what that masculinity is that is toxic. So the masculinity itself isn't toxic, it's just people's interpretation of it is toxic. When you say that your son is going to become gay or effeminate or less than a man by him working at a kitchenette set or even playing with a doll. I was reading in the comments, that reminds me, I was reading in the comments where a guy was like, well, I'd rather my son have a kitchenette than a doll. And I'm like, first of all, do you even realize the understanding of a doll? What these are about, baby dolls, are generally about teaching nurturing. Teaching someone to care for something outside of themselves. Teaching someone to have an affinity and an affection and a protection over something outside of themselves. So if you don't want your son to have them characteristics, then you must don't want your son to be a good person, a nurturing, caring, kind, compassionate person. And we wonder why in certain communities that the father ratio is less than. Why? Because we don't really teach men how to be good fathers. We don't teach men, our young boys, how to be nurturing, caring, affectionate, emotional, communicative fathers. Because we assume in our narrow construct of gender norms that that's a feminine trait. Don't ask me, ask your mother. Don't get, your father's not supposed to care for you when you're hurt. That's your mother's job, and she's supposed to cook for you. We put a lot of onus on women. We put a lot of responsibility on women, and we wonder, surprisingly, when they get tired and fed up and don't want to have to deal with that anymore. Why? Because we put a lot of responsibility on rearing the children and morality of society on the women, when men should be just as responsible for that. Gender roles in this day and age are really pointless, right? Pointless. I understand the idea of chivalry and say like a man should pay for a date. That's all nice and fine, but if a woman wants to pay for the date, why can't she? I understand the conversation about a man supposed to be the provider and the protector, but if a woman wants to be the provider and the protector, and many times if she's a single mother, she's doing that anyway, why not allow it to be? If the man wants to be a stay-at-home dad, take care of the kids while the wife goes out and make the money and support the family, why is that even something that is so weird and so unusual? We need to get out of the social constructions of gender because they were invalid and really not sufficient back then. But now, especially in this time period, we know so much better. Why are we still trying to hold on to those things? What I hate to see is when a young person finds an affinity for something, when a young person gets passionate about something, when a young person finds something that they want to put their stamp on it and make a mark on it and add it to their lives, that they find so much joy in it that we come with our archaic beliefs, our late delayed thinking and stuff, our systems and our paradigms, and we ruin that dream for that child. The young man in the picture might not even be a chef. The young man in the picture might not even work in the culinary arts. However, he might. And if you step in with that faux masculinity and that desire to fit into a paradigm, you may have killed a dream. You may have killed somebody who's going to be the greatest at what they were going to do by trying to limit them into your limited frame of reference of society. Just because your parents did it, your grandparents did it, your great-great-grandparents did it, your ancestors did it, does not mean it is right. I'm not saying squash and step on everything that has came before you, traditions and customs and beliefs. I'm not saying step on that and just push it to the side. What I am saying is we were given a lot in our experience growing up. So were your parents, so were your grandparents, so were your ancestors. We were given a lot. However, it is important to be a reasonable, rational thinking, logical thinking person. Everything that you were given is not useful for you in a modern social context. And you have to be able to question, ask questions, see how relevant something is, and if it's useful, and if it's not, it's not. But to try to hold someone else, young people, and anyone behind you hostage to paradigms you hold for yourself is unfair, uncool, and it just makes no sense. It just makes no sense. So when the conversation to me doesn't make sense at all, because I'm like, this young man is just doing what he enjoyed. He's not putting gender in it. You shouldn't put gender in it. He more than likely won't learn the gender until his parents take him away from that kitchenette and telling him that is something girls do, not something boys do. So now he has a messed up mentality on gender norms. He also has a messed up mentality probably of who he is, because if he was passionate about this, you just broke his spirit. And now he's going to see life through your paradigm. And if your paradigm was toxic and you pass it down to your children, their paradigm is going to be toxic, and they're going to pass it down to their children. And we wonder why these generational things of ups and downs, or curses as some people will call it, go on and on and on. Because we don't question our paradigms. We just expect it to be this way because it's always been that way, and it was that way before, it had always been that way, so it's going to always be that way. And I'm here to tell you that's not the case. Times change, life change, we learn more, we grow more, but you have to be willing to move with the times. And if the paradigms that you've created, whether it's around gender or anything else, are not suitable for a modern time, and really out of touch with what's happening in reality, and really what's out of touch with what has happened for real, in real time, factually, for centuries, then you might want to change it. You might want to reconsider. You might want to understand that there's more than one lane to be a complete human. But we will not get there if we think that the only lane we have to go down is the same lane as everybody else. A person who loves themselves allows others to show up as themselves and accept them for who they are, not for who they want to be, and who they want them to be. And so many parents make the mistake of trying to mold their kids in their image instead of taking the clay and the stuff that those kids are made out of and allowing it to form itself and accepting and loving what is formed. I'm gonna have to do a talk on that. I'm gonna have to get up here and talk about that, because that's a big issue of parents trying to curate their kids in their image and not really accepting and honoring and valuing and cherishing who those kids are as themselves. But anyway, I don't want to get on here too long, talk too much, but the picture's adorable. Maybe the boy go off one day and be the best culinary artist in history, and hopefully his parents are good with it and they celebrate it, and he'll be making them good food. And that'll be his passion. Family, you know how I feel about you. I love you all with the highest love. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Go ahead and like the video. You can share the video. Leave comments about what you think about this particular issue. Because, like I said, we all have differences of opinion. I'm just giving my discussion on it, but you might have your own discussion. And maybe it can be a discussion that's open for all of us to have. I love you all, and as I always say, I'll see you in the next video.